On this episode of For All Nerds, we are here to talk about one of the greatest shows of all time, season 2 of Andor. And what's up, y'all, and welcome to a very, very special episode of the For All Nerds show. We are here to talk about Andor season 2. The entire season is now out on Disney Plus. So if you haven't seen it and you're worried about spoilers, you might want to log off, go finish the joint. It's incredible. Come back and watch this. I ain't got my AKAs tonight because I'm too hype about this show. So I'm just going to get right into it. I've got a bunch of special guests. I'm going to start off with my brother Mellow Brown. Please let the people out there know
what's going on. It's Mellow Brown. What was it? AKA Saga Rar. I don't know. I don't got too many on the AKAs either. But hey, how's it going?
All right. And also we are joined by Joel, For All Nerds. Listeners know him as our social media maestro.
Hey, it's Joel. I don't have any AKAs either. I was too much going on.
Yeah, it really is. It's no worries. Tonight we, sans AKAs, unless Porshea Patterson, the last of the four, has something to add to it.
I have nothing, sadly. I have no Star Wars ones. All of mine are Castle Black related, but like I think there's a good one like Andor. There will be no more. There's just Rogue One after this, right? So here we are.
Sadness. My first thought is to everyone listening, tomorrow I'm going to go to a screening of Andor clips and stuff with the god Tony Gilroy himself. And one of my main questions I wanted to ask is, what could you do an Andor special edition where Cassian survives? And, it just keeps on going. I know that's not the point of it.
Please don't.
No, I'm not going to.
Ask for a Mon Mothma show, but not that.
There's a lot of shows, like Wilmon show, a lot of things I could ask for. But yes, we are at the end of Andor. It's been years in the making. We've all been waiting for this. First off, just, what did y'all think of season 2 and the series in general?
So I love season 2. I thought it was incredible. And to just give a quick wrap real quick, I think the series as a whole is now my personal favorite series. Especially being in like just television production, just seeing every little piece of how everything works while also getting film quality acting, performances, special effects. Everything is just above and beyond what TV should normally do. As long as I keep this career, this is the show that I'm going to actually be chasing, and I'm proud of it for that reason. In regards to season 2, I'm not going to throw the masterpiece word out there. That is something I used for season 1, but for season 2, it's one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen. It's incredible. It had highs and lows, but I think the lows made the highs higher. But at the same time, it's still a low. But so I like it. I love it.
All right, Joel.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this season too. I think for me, it was like one, just how like relevant shit was to like what's happening now, and just like how much they I think put in the group chat. Like, is that Euphoria clip?
Wait, is this fucking play about us?
It's like all the things that were happening. I was like, oh, okay, cool, noted. Someone's taking note of things that are going around here. So yeah, I think like I really enjoyed that. And for me, I also just really loved like it showed the humanity side of like what it means to be in a rebellion and what it means to be a rebel. Like at the end of the day, these are also still people with like emotions and things that they have to go through. And I really enjoyed that like Andor explored that some more. Like, yeah, they're part of this big cause, but like what does that impact have on like your actual life?
Porshea?
I've mentioned this before in different places, but Rogue One is like the reason why I actually care about Star Wars at all. So Andor was the thing for me. As soon as it was announced, I was like, oh my God, like I cannot wait. This is gonna be amazing. And it lived up exactly and above. Like I didn't even set expectations for it. I just wanted to live and ride the ride. And I just enjoyed the ride the whole way through. There were components of it that I was just like, it gave me aspects of Game of Thrones at its peak when it was like they're gonna do stuff with characters that you're not going to expect them to do. You're like, surely they're not, and then they do it, and I appreciated that throughout both seasons. And I really there are things that I was just like, when I look at Andor overall, I'm very happy with like where it went. And I don't even think Tony Gilroy and like at all like part of the process for Rogue One, because
Yeah. It's all
Yeah,
okay.
in.
it's really touch and go. Tony Gilroy was in a position where
Mm-hmm.
he replaced the original director. Out of respect for that person, I won't say his name, but
Mhm.
he had to come in and do a lot of cleanup. But he also heightened roles like Cassian Andor in that regards.
Yeah. So I just feel like it was a credit to like all the things I really enjoyed about Rogue One. It just like took it, and I'm like, you can tell that what the work was that was done, because there's sometimes where you see like in different stories, in different series and different movies, where their original purpose doesn't really get lived up to, I guess, as a
Mm.
prequel. And I really was like, this actually made me feel like it flowed well into it. And this, like you're saying, Mello, was like a standard set for like, if you're gonna do a series, especially if you're gonna do a prequel, like this has got to be like what you look at as your standard for how you're gonna pull that together.
Like Mello said, I consider the first season to be an absolute masterpiece. Probably one of my, if not my favorite, one season of television ever. And there were a bit more lows in the second season, I think. But at the same time, even those lows, I felt like contributed to the overall story. And as a second season, I thought it was near perfect as well. As a series, I think it's near perfect. Like Mello said, it's one of those things that I just feel like I'm always going to be comparing my work to. Like, is this, on the level of Andor, or is this trying to say the type of things that Andor is trying to say? Because that's something that I just always want to write and talk about: revolution and change and growth and living your life, in a free way. And that's something that I felt like the show really did. Like Joel said, the way they explored the humanity of what it does to people to be in a rebellion. Like me and Mello were talking about when we talked about the first 3 episodes, one of my favorite quotes ever is, when you talk about revolution, you better be ready to eat rats to survive. And if you're not ready to eat rats, then don't talk about revolution. And this show showed that you're going to eat a lot of rats and a lot worse than that. And I thought that was incredible. And it just also just touched on what it means to live your life with purpose. And that's something that I feel like a lot of television, a lot of media doesn't do. It's not inspiring. And that's the way that I have a problem with a lot of media because of that, because I feel like it's the easy way out to offer no hope, or to just be dejected and depressed about everything. And it's much harder to be hopeful and positive about things in life. But I feel like that's just a better way to go through things. And I struggle with it myself. I'm sure everyone does. But that's why I rely and I love media that, actually encourages people to live free and to be hopeful about the future. So, getting into it, did anyone have, or what was some of your favorite moments from season 2 or favorite episodes?
Is it episode 7? I can't remember the numbers right
Mm-hmm.
now.
I can't
Um,
either.
the one with Kleya,
Mm,
doing what she needed to do, and us
Mm,
seeing us into the background of like when you talk about being a rebel, we're talking about being a revolutionary and being having to eat rats. Like, are you willing to do what you say you're gonna do? And so her being young and being like, we have to go in, like we have to be like we have to get these people. And he's like, and for Luthen to be like, okay, but you need to be aware of like the like what happens from that, like what are the ramifications? And she her like showing like the juxtaposition of those scenes as she's doing what she's doing. And I feel like it really plays with the idea of what you think um a revolution will feel like, what will happen, because I think generally, like the general audience, you're going to think, oh, she's going to try to figure out a way to save this person or how to get him out of the situation. And that's not what you do when you're a rebel. That's not how this all goes down. You have to be prepared to do the thing that is the hardest thing for you to ever do. Um, And I really appreciated them doing that. And then for her to be the way that she was out of sorts afterwards, I'm like, that makes sense for her. Like, it all just made sense. It aligned with her characterization. It aligned with the circumstances. It aligned with like all the needs of the storytelling. So I really appreciated like what they did with that episode and with her. Like, seeing her in season 1, I'd always wondered like, how did she become this person, and who is she really to this like cause? And actually being able to see it in season 2 and like give it a good clean like wrap up was actually very compelling. And it would be cool to see if there's anything that comes from this. It'd be cool to see like what that influence does to the rest of the universe.
Kleya, played by Elizabeth Dulau, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing their last name right, was my MVP of season 2. Like, I thought Kleya's character, everything they showed, the way she responded to situations, everything was just absolutely beautiful, incredible. And like you said, Porshea, it was that moment at the end because she walked in and there was no hesitation. And that's what really just sold it. I mean, that whole episode, and that was episode 10. So that was like really daring for them too, just to do that, towards the end of the season, to take this time out and show you her origin story and Luthen's origin story towards the end of the series was really daring to me as well. And then there was, like I said, there was just no hesitation. She walked in and did what needed to be done. It was not, no, I'm coming here to save this dude. He's already tried to, unalive himself. He already knows what the situation is. I was honestly mad at Luthen for not having the whole building wired so he could have got Dedra in one, but I guess he don't want to blow up, take unnecessary lives around them, etc. But, you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
I kind of think he would have took some unnecessary lives. I saw
Yeah, I mean,
like, did you see the bodies he left behind before that?
Yo,
scene,
Lonnie, poor Lonnie, man. I just rewatched the episode before we started this, and my man really told him about Yavin. It was like, I don't know if y'all know of Mice and Men, when he was like, yo, go look at the flowers, and then gave that
Also,
man the
The
hot one.
Walking Dead, they did that too. The little girl, they told her to look at the flowers.
Go look at the flowers, yeah. My man told him about Yavin and then left him on the bench.
It's wild because
no
the
finals for you.
speech that he gives, that speech in season 1 that he gives to Lonnie is entirely what season 2 is about. Like everything where he's like, what does this cost? Like, I have to give up empathy, compassion, comfort, safety, my sanity. But the things that you maintain are like hope and consideration, and that's the one thing they showed is actually like the thesis of the show. That it's just like, because we are compassionate for each other, because we're building a community in the process of fighting against this thing, that the empire itself is going to implode. And because it isn't made of any of those things, it's going to eat itself to death. And that's also something we see in the news regularly. It is one of those like very clever things where it's just like every regime of fascism is going to eat itself, and that's even embedded in the Star Wars history, like the Sith rule, where there can only be 2 because they constantly kill each other.
Yep.
There'll never be more than 2 Sith. So seeing the entire season where it's just like, we took this one speech and we're going to make you like experience it, is a genius way to do a season, especially when you're dealing with characters that aren't powerful. They're like actually like quite weak, and you're watching the person who passes the baton and how important that is. Like, we are all also in positions where we're going to be continuing to fight. And it's the Martin Luther King speech where it's just like, like, I've seen the horizon, but I know I probably will never get there. And I know that, like, even with all Black people, we won't be able to get there. It's going to take something else. It's going to take something a little extra. And the fact that these characters don't know what that is, but they're doing it anyway. It's amazing.
Joe?
I think for me, my favorite episode was when they got Mon Mothma out the Senate. Like, it was like the way I was stressed, even though I knew she was out. I was like, I know she makes it to Yavin.
Yes.
I see her in the old movies, but like the whole time, I'm just like, how is she gonna get out of this? Like, all the betrayals that were happening, and then like her speech at the end, where it was kind of like, it's Emperor Palpatine, y'all. Like, he's the one behind all this bullshit and like it's all a lie. And I think it was a great moment too of like both her and Senator Organa realizing like there's only so much we can do like in these positions. Like there's only so much you can do as a senator being a part of this government, being a part of this system. Like this was their moment where they had to like break free to see like there's a different role I have to play because I've done all I can in what I'm doing.
I'm not sure if I think one of definitely the Kleya, and Luthen episode was one of my favorites. And this is something I want to talk to Mello about. And it's not my favorite, but the Gorman stuff was difficult. Yeah, it's like during the first season when Cassian was in prison, that was some of the most difficult stuff for me to watch. I actually was reading an interview with Gilroy where they were talking about that recently, and they were talking about how when they modeled the prison, it wasn't like on anything they'd seen. But unfortunately to me, it was so reminiscent of the when I was incarcerated, because we were incarcerated in a place that really didn't have bars on the windows and things of that nature, and there weren't a lot of guards, and that's just how it is. And so it was very reminiscent of that. And I know for Mello this season, and for a lot of us, just the Gorman stuff is very tough to deal with because it mirrors our real life and what is happening in the real world so much right now and throughout history for that matter. Like, that's something that's really kind of messed up about the show, is that it's not that it's really, oh, look, they're getting everything that we're talking that's happening right now. It's just like the things of this nature are happening throughout world history, throughout time, throughout human history. As long as we've been on this planet, we've had these type of conflicts, and then these type of actions and the way that a fascist system replies to rebellions is tried and true, and it's only improved upon. So and I know Mello has some experience with that, so I wanted to know how you felt about Gorman and everything that went on in that arc.
Yeah, real triggered.
Yeah, I fully understand.
Yeah. For listeners that don't know, what was it? I was also in the Baltimore riots when they happened, and it was structured the same way. And when I say structured, I mean like it takes a long time of planning of events to happen, so that way on the day of, everything is orchestrated perfectly, so that way you have the the perfect enemy to be your victim. And so like in regards to Baltimore, which is real high level bit of it, we all know about like the police brutality that caused the riots to build up to that point. How the city was supporting the police for that to happen, saying that it's a violent city. Of course, this is the kind of thing that happens, etc. So they have a narrative, but they also did something specific that a lot of people don't know about. That if you research it, they actually took kids that were coming out of school and they had a SWAT team meet them outside of their school, and they canceled all their buses. So they forced them to walk with the SWAT team that kept riling them up. They even refused to let them go through a mall that they usually pass through, and they routed them somewhere else, which was towards the city. And it was exactly what they needed. It was exactly what they wanted. And from there, you can start restricting or pulling any laws out of place because they're just like they're animals. We could do whatever we want to. And the way that the show kind of builds up to this, where they give you that sense of inevitability. And if you look at all of the Gorman characters, whom I like a lot,
Mm-hmm.
I like the Gorman characters because they all didn't agree, and that is the reality of what a revolution is. You have motherfuckers arguing all the time over like, I think rhythmic dance will be the way we get out of this, or anything like that. Like everybody has an opinion as to how to kind of like defeat this moment, but for the Gorman in particular, none of them were wrong. Some of them were like, we need to pull back because I think this is a trap. While other ones are just like, if we don't do something, we're all going to die. And they're both correct.
Mm.
They were just results of what this war is doing. Like even Luthen, when like Cassian is just like, what are you going to do when when this whole thing blows up? And Luthen is referring to them, or he's just like, they will burn brightly. Like it will be just a signal that is needed to make other people rise, and that's also fucked up. And it's I think it was done incredibly well. Making us experience it is necessary, but it's not an episode I'm going to be coming back to a lot. That's not something I'm going to be watching on repeat. Especially when it gets down to just like every time someone fights back a little bit, they increase the firepower to the point where they had droids murdering people instantly,
Mhm.
like on site. And it's just like all they needed was that little bit of escalation. And we're going to see that in the coming days of America, where it's just like they're going to keep trying to find ways to push people
Mhm.
and doing that as well. But yeah,
No, and you mentioned MLK earlier, and to me, it's like a lot of the stuff that MLK did gets lost to history, where people just know the "I have a dream" speech. But MLK once sent kids to the front lines because he knew that the police would send dogs to attack the kids, and he's like, "That's going to get in the national newspapers, and everyone will see this." So it's a very Luthen-esque move, to do that. But it's also the reality of when you're fighting a war. Sometimes you have to do these type of things, and Saul Guerrero's line, from season one is still just, it's one of the greatest lines to me of all time, and it's so simple. Let's call it war. Like that shit just burns in my head. But yeah, thank you for that, Mello, because I know, that was tough. And I know it's tough for all of us because I was bawling at the end when Cassian is driving away and you hear, the voice on the radio because, like we say, it's just, the reality of what's going on right now, like Palestine and Congo. I mean, all over the world, there are oppressed people being murdered, and it feels like no one is listening to them. So, yeah, it was tough.
yeah, it's definitely a conversation about choosing your moments, and it's also a conversation about like the ones that you don't choose. How do you how do you eat that? Like, how do you continue to get up, get in the shower, and still say that you're doing the right thing?
Mm,
And it and the fact that they didn't let anyone off easy. The fact that like it was so difficult for everyone to sleep after that. Like every single character, you could feel the weight of it as they're like just trying to exist to the point where like Mon Mothma can't. She's just like, I gotta speak out loud, even if this kills me. Leading into what I agree is also the what I think is the best episode of the season, and my MVP personally is Saw Gerrera, but that's a whole other. We'll get into that. I think Saw Gerrera is the best thing that ever happened to Star Wars, but
mm.
that's another thing to get into. But yeah,
So wait, what was your favorite episode then?
it's also the Mon Mothma escape.
Mm,
That is one of those things where it's just like, how do you pull this off? Like, how do you like? It takes so much luck. It takes like just every bit of like anything you can to get out of that instance, because we do have like the show has the repeat beat of Andor going back to that to Coruscant and pulling someone out of it.
mm-hmm.
But the thing that's interesting is that every time it gets harder because like that war is starting to war real hard right now,
Yeah.
um,
War
and it's
be
starting to happen
warring.
in the streets. But yeah,
All right.
what was it? Portia, did you say your favorite episode?
Was the one with Kleya.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mm,
The Yeah, I'm always down for an assassin like take out. Like I don't know, it just does stuff for me. Um, but whenever you were talking earlier about like fascists and
mhm.
speeches, that made me think about and I wonder about y'all's thoughts about Partagaz listening to Nimic when
Man.
everything is going to hit the fan. And I'm like, Nimic was like has not been on screen. We have not thought about him since season one, like early on in season one, whenever he's taken out. But his like revolutionary thoughts, his manifesto still live on. And they're not even just within the rebellion. Like the fascists are like the lead, one of the lead fascists is listening to this. As he sees everything crumbling around him. And I wonder what y'all thought about like him listening to this, like this very like we know that they're shaking because we're making an impact, like we're doing the good works. And it's like, what do y'all think about seeing this scene play out and like how it happens?
Oh,
I thought it was beautiful. Go ahead, Mello.
I was gonna say first. Well, first thing I'll say is that if Nimic had a Patreon, I would go broke. If he was dropping those once
Bars.
every week, like I think about Nimic quotes, like while I'm like tying my shoes, or I'm just, yeah, they can't take freedom from us. It comes to us as clearly as air does, like it's just. But like the fact that Partagas was listening to it, Partagas is always like Partagas is an incredibly interesting character all the way down to his first appearance where he's like, we aren't enforcers, we're like healthcare. We spot little things that are like little infections within society and we like smack them down. And so he's always been logistical in how he pulls off things and like how, but also in terms of like how he views everything. And listening to Nimic in that moment is like someone that logical can't live without the concept of there's a little bit of hope out there. There's a little bit of like why the other side of the story is beautiful. And showing that moment shows like all the moments that you've seen him have, specifically in season 2, there are moments of regret. Or when you have like that real snivelly, little, just disgusting.
Contain your enthusiasm.
Yeah, yeah. That contain your enthusiasm moment is showing everything about like he is a person where he thought he was actually doing a service, or he knew what they were doing, but he considered what he was doing was a service of healthcare, and he was also aware of his sacrifices, unlike Cyril Karn, where he was just like, I am willing to have a little genocide happen over here if it makes the universe better, in my opinion. And then, but because of him being a logical person, you kind of see the cracks start, and you kind of see like those things start to fall apart. And I thought that was like the culmination of that moment before he shoots himself in the head, where it's almost like it was a realization of like, it probably would have went better if I was on the other side and I was doing this.
Yeah. He had what I used to call in Star Trek that moment of clarity that the Klingons would have right before the proton torpedo blew up their ship. And it's like, damn, man, I should have just joined the Starfleet. Like, Mama told me I should have been in Starfleet because this life of crime ain't gonna pay out. No, I thought he was one of the most beautiful characters on the show, and like what you said about Nimic, and because we hadn't really thought about. I mean, if you watch the season, obviously it's his manifesto is so incredible, and what he says is so real to life that it's hard to forget. But as far as hearing it on the show, we hadn't heard it since the first season, and for it to come back at that last moment, like Mello said, right before my man, unalives himself, it's just like, damn, this shit is still spreading. You talk to the other dudes like, yeah, I've heard it too. And real quick, that is a perfect moment. I do want to give a shout out to Project Fulcrum, which is a really dope project that's going on right now where a group of Star Wars fans have come together and they're putting out a free newsletter every week that you can get in your email. Sign up at getfreetogether.com. And every week you'll get a new email and you can read all of them because they're basically Nimitz manifestos where they're sending out information related to every episode, talking about the episodes and talking about the real life things that influence these episodes. Like, and this week with Gorman, they mentioned the Battle of Wounded Knee. They mentioned Palestine, of course. I mean, like I said, there are countless massacres and violations throughout human history, and especially in more recent history that you can mention. But I really like Project Fulcrum, and you can sign up for free at getfreetogether.com. And we'll probably have some more, and then we're do an all-star review of this, hopefully, and have some more from them. But yeah, I just wanted to mention them real quick because I really love Nimic's manifesto. And like I said, seeing it in that last moment, seeing it, hearing it throughout the last, scene and just it resonating was like, it goes back to when you see Melshi and Cassian listening to it on the beach and just knowing, that it's like, it's spread, and it's just undeniable. And that's what was so beautiful about that for me.
It's the infection. And he found himself infected.
Yep. Yeah.
Actually, I know we're gonna keep talking about this dark ass show, but I have one fun question for everybody here. We do have so I think there's 2 instances within the show where we may have seen the Force happen. They were very blatant about it in season 2 with the lady who was kind of doing the healing and question if that was real or not.
Yep.
But the other one was the suggestion that Nemec may have been either Force sensitive or a Jedi. Like at like the end of the day, he
Mm,
had the ability to be a Jedi because of that scene where they're like flying through the meteorites, the meteor shower as it's happening, and he no longer needs to look at the console while he's
yep.
not to tell him the directions and exactly where to go.
Mm,
And he said the number one phrase of both the series and the movie, which is "climb," which
climb. Yeah.
I get emotional. But
Yeah. No, I'm not. That's why I'm over here sighing because I'm already thinking of it. It's just like the chills are going. Nimit not looking away from the console and still directing him, and him like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Climb, nigga, climb." I told you, like.
that's my favorite quote from them: "Climb, nigga, climb." But
Yes.
but I don't know. Do y'all believe in either of those moments was Nimic force sensitive and was that lady force sensitive or mixed match either or were they all just circumstances of people being highly skilled from what we've seen people capable of in the Star Wars universe?
I think for me, and I remember you mentioned this when you talked about season one the first time about like how it's such a great show and there's no Jedi involved. Like I don't care. Like
Mhm.
whether or not the Force was involved or not, like the Force was such like an irrelevant part of the show. Like if it happened, cool. Like that's a cute little Easter egg for me to make sure that this is, part of the Star Wars universe. But like everything else about this show was just so much more important than like Jedi and the Force that like it was cool if it happened, but at the end of the day, I don't really care because the rest of this show was just like that good.
Hmm. Portia?
Well, one thing about me is I always love magic. No matter how it shows up, like I'm with it. But I think for me and like the Force, and when it's in this like intuitive way, when it's less straightforward, this is a Jedi, this is someone who's like they're not saying I have Force sensitivity, so you should listen to me. Like they're just like, this is like what I've intuited from the universe. This is what I've been called to do. This is what's happening, and I'm just like it's flowing through me. That feels so close to this like spiritualism that I'm like seeing more and more today. Like it's less so religious based and more so like being aware of the energies that are like around us, like environment, and like moving with that, like in tune with what works for you, and then in lockstep with other folks, and then just like then channeling it through your body. So I really do. I think they're force sensitive. Yeah, I think that's what they would call it. Like I think in this universe they would call it force sensitivity. That's what that is. But I think overall it's being aligned with the moment and like what's needed. And so like yeah, force sensitivity, sure, because that's what that like the force is the like the living like or the yeah the living like force throughout the universe. But I think it's more like I really appreciated that the healer um like not only was she so this is like this is why I got in trouble with Ben, and I'm sorry, Ben. I promise I'll make it up to you some kind of way. I will find a way to make it up to you in the future. But I had like from the beginning of the season, like at least by season like episode 3, I was like, because I was okay. Maybe this is because I watched too many, like I've watched soap operas growing up like my formative years and also like watched like a lot of romances. But knowing that knowing what happens at the end of Rogue One, I was like, okay, but what about Bix? What's
Mm,
Bix's part of this? And the fact that Bix kept living when she kept doing things that could have had her unalived, I was like, there's going to be a child because
mm,
there's too many reasons. Like you don't keep Bix around unless XYZ. And then I kept getting confirmation, confirmation. And so the healer's saying to Andor, there's a reason, like she might be your reason that you need to, like, that's who you stay with, right? I'm like, this is the extra sign I needed that there's a kid that comes from
mm,
this. And the fact that when I was right, but two, that like this is something like the healer shows up later, is in that scene where Andor goes to his final mission.
mhm,
Like I think that is not just like a happenstance of like she just happened to be at the right place at the right place at the right time, or that like um there's just like this general like alignment that she has with the story. I think that is for sensitivity, like 'cause she knows she's going to see Andor again when she sees him the first time, and she leaves him with that message only to see him not with the person he's supposed to be with, but on a mission.
mm. Yeah. For me, Mellow, with Nimic, it didn't really bother me or even, do anything. I was like, cool, that's awesome. The scene's just amazing and Nimic's amazing. So whatever. Um, when the healer showed up, that was my first time, I think, in all of Andor where I was like, I don't know about this shit. Because I'm not for that. There's a chosen one, and this man is the only man who can do it. That type of storyline is something that I feel is tired and done way too much in Star Wars. But then again, reading interviews with Gilroy and other people who were behind the scenes, they were talking about how it's more about Andor, and this is something that has been throughout, the whole show, is that he's constantly running away. He's like the Jon Snow of this universe, where he's constantly like, no, I don't want to be the chosen one. I'm not this. I'm trying to get out of here. I've done enough. I've put my life on the line. I need to be able to, go away with Bix and all this type of stuff. And so it didn't bother me much after that. I've kind of like it's just, and like you said, Portia, and everyone said, it's part of the universe. And that's the thing. It's like the Force is part of the universe. And like Portia said, its spirituality is expressed and shown in different ways. And we in this modern age where people are picking and choosing and finding, different bits of things to help them through the day. And so in this universe, I feel like the same way. It would just be one of those things that's in the background. And I also love in Star Wars whenever the Force is shown to not just be a Jedi and Sith thing, because I think that's so corny that only these two groups of people throughout the billions, trillions of people in the galaxy, are the only Force users. And that's why I love whenever in Star Wars, like in Rebels and um Clone Wars, everything else, we've seen all the expanded stuff where it's a lot more than just
Yeah,
the Jedi and the Sith.
there could be like the night witches that got it. There's like a random animal that's just real
Yes.
good at it, a space whale.
Yes.
that
Yes.
is like that discovered hyperdrive. Yeah.
Yep.
I just
But
wanted
like
to add that as a story element, that this sets up what we see in Rogue One. Like it's like we see that none of them are Jedi, but we have Force aligned people that like are walking around in Rogue One dodging laser fire,
Yep.
right? So I think as a prequel, like setting the scene, I think it was like a story element thing as well, that I'm like, I note like we're getting lay up into what we see in Rogue One in this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's probably the most specific and the most fun conversation in Star Wars for me personally. Of like, do you think that the Force is like is it working for some of these characters? Doesn't matter, because even going into like Rogue One, like you were saying, what you have like Donnie Yen's character, as Donnie Yen plays like, I don't know, maybe the third or fourth blind man he's played in his career.
And
But
he
what was
does
it?
like two more after that. So
Yeah, it's like, I'm seeing that John Wick spinoff, but it's
Not gonna
it's one of
stop.
those things where like he could also be good enough for it to not matter, but the thing that mattered the most about him was his death, because of what he did to his friend immediately after he died, where
Mm-hmm.
his friend was just like, the entire time he's like, the Force is a thing that he's into. I am real supportive of my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute that Donnie Yen died, he was just like, he was saying like, I am one with the Force and the Force is with me,
Mm-hmm.
repeatedly, just because he's just like, this is going to push me long enough, and if I believe in it, maybe I'm lucky enough to see him again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with characters like Bix, she was in the same place where it's just like, I need something. And like, even if, like, I like to think that we're special. I like to think that there's something special about us. And every now and then, maybe those little miracles do happen. Maybe those little, and like, because like Bix is also a character where I think, where that would be like one of my, both my lows and my highs, which says that that character, as good as it is, where I think that that character is incredibly skilled and incredibly capable, and she was before we ever met her in the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the way that she's used is that she is a character who is regularly victimized, and we're seeing her strength to continue. It is not my place to say how a victim in that regard is portrayed either, because what she's doing is incredibly powerful. It is incredibly strong, and like, it is it's someone like that you're going to need to get to the end. Whereas just like if anyone wants to complain about the conditions, meet Bix. She's still here. She didn't give up. She didn't give up to torture. She didn't give up to the worst torture that's possible within the Star Wars universe. And she is still like around and kicking and making major decisions that will decide the fate of everybody in this universe. And is it the Force that why she did it because of like her belief in it or anything like that? And I think that's where I also agree with Joel, where it's like it kind of doesn't matter. It's the fact that it gave her something to do it. And yeah, I think we all feel that too. Even when we like pass away, we're just like I know my loved one is like watching over me in that moment. Doesn't matter if it's true. Is what you need to get through the next thing.
Well, all right. Since we are here, let's talk about the characters, and since we're talking about Bix, because we can get to Cassian, of course. But how did y'all feel about Bix in season 2? Because that was, for me, that was another one of my I don't know moments, and it was when Bix got her revenge on the Doctor and blew him up and all that. Because as someone who is like personally dealing with a lot of trauma right now, I wish I could blow up certain people, but that's just not how real life works in most cases. And because of that, I felt like that was kind of easy way out for her, even though seeing the rest of the season, she still is suffering and dealing with all the trauma. It's just, it was that one moment to get back for her. But how did you feel about Bix throughout season 2?
I mean, I feel like if her getting her revenge, I didn't necessarily have a problem with. I think what I had a problem with was we didn't really explore the effect that had on her afterwards. Like, yeah, that was the choice that she made. Cool. But I wanted to see like how is she dealing with like, did that actually give her the peace that she needed? Like, did she still struggle? Was she still having nightmares? I think like it was just so swept under the rug of like, oh, that was it. That was her like band-aid solution. She's good. She's good now. She's here for Cassian and just like rooting him on. Well, I wanted to see more of her like dealing with the repercussions of like, okay, I killed that person. I killed my torturer. Like, how do I actually feel about that? Like, is this something that I regret? Is this something that like has brought me peace and that I'm proud of? And I just felt like we didn't really get to see a lot of that because the rest of the season was focused on her like being that support for Andor and like and ultimately deciding that like she needs to sacrifice the relationship so that like he can be good. But I just wanted to see more of like her actual story unfold.
Porshea, Mellow?
Agreed. Like that's how I was able. I'm like, there's reasons why they're keeping her around besides this plot of her like having like revenge on her a torturer. But I just think there's so much about her, like even from season 1, that is so dependent on her relationship with Cassian that I just don't feel like I have a full fleshed understanding of her as a person. Like I do, and they were able to achieve that with Kleya in one episode for me, which they and Bix is in way more like episodes where I get parts of her personality, and I still don't really fully know like who she is beside her rebel identity and like partially like who she had to be whenever she was holding things down. I forget what the name of their planet is. Where they
Ferrex.
Ferrex. So I think that like yeah. So I yeah. I feel like there's so much of her, and then maybe that's who she is. Like maybe she has because of everything going on. This is the personality she's putting forward, and that's what you're gonna get, and you're not gonna be able to read her interior as much. But I would have liked to like we do get to see other characters' interior moments, and I would have wanted to see that more than just her being traumatized and having to work through her trauma. Um, yeah,
She had a whole addiction, and it was like what happened. Like she got addicted to the drops while she was.
and she spoke to Luthen one time, and all of a sudden, we don't hear any more about it.
Like,
Okay.
she go to Yavin 4's rehab. Like what happened? Like,
I mean, like I am in the camp of like, if you kill one Nazi, maybe you get over your addiction. but at the same time,
Look, if I could have blown up certain people in my time, I would have felt a lot better afterwards.
like
So
I've
you're
never
saying
slept
you're
better.
like self-medicating because of this person being alive. As soon as they're gone, you're like, I don't need this. I don't need this anymore.
It's not even about them being gone. It's about the act of blowing them up. Is what I think. That's like, that's where it's like, yes, sorry, that feels better.
you can
Them being
that
gone
after the
afterwards.
rest of your life.
Huh?
You can live off that high for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
All I need.
That's it. I'm good. So I do kind of feel you there, Mellow.
But there is like I agree with both Joel and Portia on this. There's so much left on the table about the character.
Mhm.
The thing that's also very frustrating and the thing I don't like about Star Wars is that they tend to do that on purpose.
Mm.
They usually leave tons of stories. Like that there's probably 50 Cassian and Bix missions that we have not seen.
Mhm.
So
That
we
they were
might get
like
it in a
already
comic book. They're gonna make us
yeah.
pay money for it. Yeah.
Mhm.
They'll pop up as a cameo in a video game, and like it's hey, you know what? I'm gonna lose my shit when I see them, but at the same time, I wanted to hear, like
I'm gonna buy those comics, you know.
like I
You got me.
like you can like can we just like talk about the drug addiction, but show them on two speeders just fucking people up, But and that's me just kind of leaning towards the action side, but that also had to remind myself as to like Andor the series, not the character. The Andor teaches you how to watch it as you're watching it, where it's just like you're hearing about the rebels getting bigger and you're seeing year to year where it's just like, oh, y'all are a full army now.
Mhm.
Like that planet that just had like a group of leftists shooting each other and not knowing what to do is a full military space now. And you don't see that. You're seeing the story of like people like eat away at their personalities and who they are as people as they're trying to figure it out. And to the point where we get an episode called "Who Are You?" Um, and what does that mean in the process? But the where we land with Bix on that is is one of those things where it's like this is not me giving the show a pass. This is me figuring out my feelings on it because it's like I said earlier. She is 100% being victimized repeatedly, and in the process of that happening, we also saw her push back on Cassian within the first few episodes of like, get away from me. I'm enjoying a good life.
Mhm.
Like I got my plain simple boyfriend who is like dating way up right now. But maybe I just want it's like the Ocean's 11 one of the best lines from Ocean 11 where it's just like does he make you laugh? And Julia Roberts' line response is like he doesn't make me cry.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where Bix has been. She's been in a place where she's just like, I just want some stability and normality in my life. I think we probably would have gotten more as to like Bix's story was dope if we would have known where she was from, because she's the
Mhm.
one other person who has the exact same accent as Cassian, and we don't know their back history in relation to that because Cassian, we saw where he came from, and it's just like, how did anyone else make it off of that place?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And why is she the way that she is? What is the life that she led to this point? But I do think it is around that space of just like she's going to fight with her ability to live in stability,
Mhm.
and you need people like that as well within a revolution. I'm sure she was incredibly necessary, but that is also me saying that filling in the blanks, and I wish those blanks weren't blanks.
Mm.
I just want to
And
add that if because some of the connotation is that she weaned herself off because she found herself pregnant possibly, and I don't like that
Mhm.
connotation because like there
Mm.
you still can have to war with yourself with that addiction and like learning. So I don't like that being the thing that sits there on the table. And then also I think um talking about her like looking for stability or like the neglect and torment she's faced being like and tortured by the empire. I think she's also in the rebellion. There's so much chaos within the rebellion that it's also like hitting her psyche as well. So like she may not be thinking about it like unconsciously, but there's levels of neglect for that she's replicating by being like, I have to sacrifice this relationship for the rebellion. I have to sacrifice these different things of myself for the rebellion, and that's it's done in understanding what she needs to do as a rebel, but it's also like traumatic to her as a person, even though it's for a better cause. So she's getting trauma from all sides. There's no like safe road for her, it seems, besides going to the farm and living out her life in a way.
Yeah, no, I agree with what everyone said about Bix. Like, she was definitely one of my favorite characters throughout this show. And I also love that she was already involved even before Cassian. She was already working with Luthen, already slinging shit on the side, doing what she had to do. So she was already about that life. And I feel like the world pushed her more into it, where it's like she accepted even before Cassian that there is no going back. This is the world we live in now. We are in this war, whether we want her to or not. Like, Marva dies and tells her fight the Empire. And, I think she took that to heart, as well as already having been tortured by the Empire, etc., where she just like, nah, there is no going back. There is no returning. And then, Brazos just killed, and that little bit of life she had left was gone. So it just becomes where she had to do what she had to do. And yeah, I would have loved to see more, but I think that's just, it's just one of the limitations of us only having these 2 seasons. And it's one of the great things of it only being 2 seasons, where we don't get a lot of filler, but then it's also one of the limitations of it.
Yeah, it's tough. Uh, I will say, in regards to personal favorite character, Saw Gerrera, uh, every scene he was in, I was like, yeah, this is incredible, and it's so cruel. Like, it's actually pointing out probably the only time I'm sure Disney probably stepped in anytime Saw Gerrera's name was written in the script because of what it says. Like, so the thing that they're portraying is that there's two sides of the coin, right? Or if you're a rebel, you're either with the Mon Mothma crew, with Cassian and the rest of them, or you go in full ham with Saw Gerrera.
You're
And
eating rats when you're rolling with Saul.
well, Saw's not necessarily eating rats. Saw kind of eating. He's eating all right, but you're also eating civilians. Like,
Yeah,
it's
that's it's a metaphorical rat.
yeah.
That yeah, you might eat good, but you are metaphorically eating mad rats.
I mean, I hope they're metaphorically eating civilians. They
Yeah,
wild. Like,
yeah.
like it's one of those things where when we get down to it and we're talking about, like, we got to take it to the Empire. So that I do want to bring up a separate show that is immediately connected to this, that they made a scene within Star Wars Rebels to promote Rogue One, and it was a scene that should have been. It was originally supposed to be in Rogue One, and it probably would have been one of the best scenes that they ever would have had within a live action Star Wars. And it was definitely in my personal favorite scene within Rebels. And that is, they finally have on a holocron Saw Gerrera and Mon Mothma talk to each other.
Mm.
And Mon Mothma is just like, you're a monster. You are terrorizing people. You're doing like explicit tortures. You're killing innocent people in the process of killing your targets. And Saw is like, but I do kill my targets, unlike you. They're like, I get them all. Like, I will wipe them out. And one thing he brings up in the conversation as well is that like, basically walk on the battlefield and then look at the bodies on the ground and ask how many of them are sure happy that they fought fair. Like the rules, like, they're not playing by the rules, and why should we? And I always remember that Rebel scene because I was like, fuck, am I a Saw Gerrera dude? And like, that's a real difficult conversation about that scenario. That's a real difficult conversation, because Mon Mothma is a person where she's like, we're going to go in, we're going to only kill specific targets. I'm going to risk all of your lives, and I'm going to sit here in my slightly less proper dress than I had last week and tell you this is the right thing to do. And you have Saw Gerrera that's just like, we're going to kill as many of these motherfuckers as possible, and it's going to change the scale of the war immediately. It's gonna change everything. I'm going to lose some of them over there, some of you, but in the process, that's what you signed up for. He's like, you can, but the rebels, the rest of the rebels, and Mon Mothma also signed up for that, but she's going about it real soft and real slow, and that's how you lose a war. And it's an incredible conversation about the perspective of what you do when you consider yourself, quote unquote, a rebel. And the way that they did not shy away from it with Saw Gerrera, I think, was like some of the best stuff, and I wish there was more. But yeah.
Yeah. Real quick on Saul, I saw someone comparing him, and I feel like there's a lot of this, and I've definitely had this thought before, especially when you see him in Rogue One, that he is basically the Rebels version of Darth Vader, where he's more man than machine, willing to do whatever it takes, and not about that life, not about agreeing with everybody else. Like Darth Vader calls the Senate and the whole everything just a bunch of assholes, and screams on the rest of the Empire, chokes people out with no choice, and keeps it moving. And Saw, I thought even in his last line in this season was just perfection when he's like, I wish you could fight as well as you lie. Because it's like that shit is so real. And even in his scenes with Wilmon, man, Forrest Whitaker just, absolutely ruled, because my man's sitting there talking about sniffing gas, butt naked, in the fields. And he's just going on like this is the greatest day of his life.
Exactly. But that also, he makes 100% a correct point where he's just like, y'all don't know what it's like in the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've lived here my whole life.
Yeah.
Like, I've been doing this my whole life. This gas and me, family. Like, we like this. I can't trust you. You had a fancy dinner 2 weeks ago with these motherfuckers that I'm shooting.
Mm.
And he's just there's a part of you that you sacrifice in the process, but I'm the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm the thing that you have inside of you that you're afraid of. And like the where they land with Saul in Rogue One, where it's like he sacrifices so many pieces of himself.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally turned physical, where he's got like two metal feet. He's breathing like Darth Vader, who also lost tons of pieces of himself. So that way we could. I don't know if it really fits kind of analogy in regards.
No, it's like one of those things, and it's like for me, another one that I was noticing this season is kind of like how Syril and Mon Mothma are both kind of not exactly sides of the same coin, but they both have that same thing where it's like they think that they can commit genocide and shit'll be cool the next day, but that's just not what it is. And when Syril especially is confronted with the reality, how did y'all feel about Cyril's last moments on the planet, on I can't say on Earth, but yeah, on Gorman?
Because of what I said about Saw and where I discovered where I was leaning towards, kind of didn't give a fuck. Like it's one of those things where like I'm literally looking at a screen across from me right now of like my YouTube is filled with video essays of people being like, maybe we were wrong about Syril, and I'm like,
nah.
Like, when you pick up,
I gotta make a new essay.
Exactly. It's like I'm not going to give a fuck about the guy with the whip. He should have never picked up the whip. Like it is a cautionary tale about someone seeking purpose within like their own little sniveling little corner that they live in the world and everything like that. But at the same time, it's not. I don't feel sorry for him.
Hell no.
He had plenty of access to change this, and more than once he turned a blind eye. And how dumb are you? Where it's like the day of the genocide, and you're like, "Are we doing the genocide?" Like it's yeah. Like so I had I had no sympathy for him or for Dedra. I was like, basically like round of applause when both of them went down. But
I had no sympathy for either of them. I thought Syril was definitely interesting, and it was like Syril just reminds me of too many people I know, because it's like I've seen a lot of people, especially in the last few years, people who I thought were rational and sane, fall under the sway of foolishness, and just I'm like, wow, dude, I didn't know, you're not as sane as I thought you were. And it's one of those things, like you said with Syril, like I also don't have sympathy for these people, because I'm also like, you're a grown ass man, and you over here drinking this Kool-Aid up, like for real? You ain't got sense enough to go to a library or some shit. You just don't take your news off of Fox. I can't help you after that.
I'm happy I'm on the right podcast, dude.
Nah, I'm mad at their videos. Like, shit, I'm about to make a video about, no, you are not wrong about Syril. My man deserved what he got. I thought, now you want to talk about applauding? I fucking rolled when that nigga was like, after all of this, who are you? That was like that Mad Men moment. Like, bro, I don't think about you at all. Like, you know,
Or T'Challa, whenever was it Bucky said something to him and he was like, oh no, it was Hawkeye, and he was like, excuse me,
yeah.
Like, my
did
name's
you
Clint. He's
sneeze?
like, I don't care.
Care. I
I don't
don't
care.
care. I don't care. Like, fuck out of my way, dude. Moving on. Yeah. So no, I no real sympathy for Syril. Like I said, I thought that was hilarious. That was his, like I say, his moment of real, moment of clarity moment where it's like, damn, bro, I should have joined the rebellion. Shit would have worked out better. I was just looking for a family. That's all Syril was looking for, was a family. And it's like, you could have found it somewhere else other than Nazis, bro.
Well, there was a moment too where I thought like they were gonna try to like redeem Syril, like he was. I'm gonna be a rebel. I'm gonna join the cause. I don't want to see that. Like you chose the wrong time. It's too late. We wrote. We don't want you in this mess. Like, I was like, I know he's not about to join the rebellion because you need to
Which
cut
I'm
him out.
so happy about, because they did that in Rebels, and it for me, I thought it was the stupidest thing. They took they made a whole member of the team, someone who like I don't know if y'all have seen Rebels or anything. Like, I don't know, Ben, you have, what was it, the big purple dude?
Yep.
That's in like the Mandalorian and CG and all that. They had a whole ass white man genocide people.
Yes.
And then eventually he joins the team and they suggest that they're like gay lovers. And he like brought him out at the end. Yeah, Portia's face.
Yeah.
Is just being right face. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know, maybe George Lucas is right. Maybe he did sell the franchise to the slave traders. Like, it's
Look, Rebels has a lot of good stuff too, though. Come on, man. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, man.
That's man, that bathwater got
it stink. It stink. No, so I was especially happy about that because, like, y'all, throughout the episode, I'm like, Syril's, he's getting a change of heart right here. He's looking to get on a new date, but no. Case closed.
Probably shouldn't say this for professional reasons, but I think that it is far too aligned with this like narrative that we should be thoughtful about the people who just don't know. And they just need the right information or the right person to talk to them in order for them to move towards the place where they care more about humanity and they can just see the light. And the fact that he bought into something that his mother had had driven into him and like had reinforced, and he was just looking for his own way in a very confusing and complex system. Like, we all make mistakes, we all have problems, and even if we're presented with information that's contradictory, sometimes we just don't go where we should. And that's what we should consider with Cyril's story. And that's what I'm sure those essays probably like catch on. And I hate that narrative. I hate the idea that like it takes you seeing someone die or like be brutalized for you to finally be like, aha, the light. I knew it was bad, but my golly, that bad. I had no idea. I was being lied to the whole time. Golly, golly willikers, I had no idea. It's not like all these people had been saying it the whole time and I just decided to not listen to them. Oh my gosh, I don't even know. Oh, how can I make it up to you? I have no like patience for that. And so I was so like similar to y'all, was glad to see him go. Not even glad, because like I don't care about this man.
Yeah.
Like it was just like,
that's what you get. It is what it is.
Okay, like this, like at least Andor took out his op, like and it's like a Cardi B line. It's like, you said you was my op, but I don't know how to look you up. Like I have no idea who the F this person is, but
I might have to put that over that scene.
It could be the smartest thing that Tony Gilroy does, is because it to yes and Portia in a more aggressive way, because I already worked for Disney. I'm going to Japan now. What was it? It's a white fantasy to believe that everybody can be redeemed. It's the reason why we get people complaining about like, how come you killed Kylo Ren, blah blah blah, or different things like that, or like he should have been redeemed sooner. Whereas like I think the better stories where Ryan Johnson was leaning towards, which is like, no, he's just irredeemable.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a bad person. Sometimes people are just bad people.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that like Syril Karn thought that what his life was doing was important, had meaning, was special, and everything ends with a womp womp womp. You know, like in the final moments
We
is
love a
what.
sad trombone.
Yeah, is exactly what he deserved.
It was like over and over again in that episode for him, though. It's like, he wasn't on Dedra, womp, womp, womp. He goes out, sees people get slaughtered, womp, 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 and then finally, I have no idea who you are, womp, womp, and then, bam, the final to the face.
It added to the fact that like Syril Karn for the second season isn't 100% comedy relief. Like at every moment, like even in the moments where he's doing shitty things and he's like working the Gorman and everything like that, it's him being like, they think I'm a special boy, and he got addicted also to being special boy because he needs to always be somebody's special boy.
Mhm.
I've never seen someone. Well, I mean, like it makes sense for someone to equally be a mom guy and a wife guy, and and can't figure out the difference between the two. So there's an Oedipal thing in there, and like the fact that he was like, "Oh, I have a new Gorman girlfriend. Are you gonna kill her too, though?" But I just recognized she a human because she thought I was special boy, and like, there's nothing redeemable about that.
Can we talk about the moment
You
where
sound like a battle rapper right now, special boy.
Can we talk about when he had a moment of being a mentor to someone? Like he thought he was really teaching somebody when he was like, well, I was able to work my way up you would never, you never know. You never know what you can do with a simple little search, I was like, this man really thinks that he's really done something.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. It's like the opposite end. Like you're watching from the perspective of the opposite end of what was it, Office Space, when like they're showing the cubicles and the dude with the glasses and the coffee mug just taking a sip, and like he clearly thinks that his environment is beautiful, that place of order that he controls and everything like that, and he's like, "This is great, right?" And it's such a good joke because it is how all of the members of the Empire see everything. They're just like everything is so organized now that I like started to crush any form of care, individuality, and empathy and everything. Like now we're all good because everybody is going to look just like me. They're going to eat everything with mayonnaise instead of hot sauce. This is great. This is like,
Seasonings, what are those?
like all seasoning has been banned. We worked so hard for this, and which is why everyone, I know I talked about it in the last podcast, which is like why everybody in the Empire kind of looks the same. Like they are very like within the Star Wars universe. Like the Star Wars universe is the most Wild West, worst place to live kind of thing. Where it's like you got to pull your weight in some kind of way. You got to have some kind of like ruggedness about you, because there's like it's just a wild place to be, and the weakest, most scared and cowardly creatures that have no appreciation for individuality or life, and they refer to it specifically with the word chaos, which is what we're actually seeing in our real life regime right now, where chaos is used for any kind of special individuality and celebration in a moment. Thinks that every form of oppression, so that way everything can be flattened, is beautiful, because they don't fit in another world. They don't fit in a world where there's like edges to anything. But it's impossible to smooth out all edges. So those people will always be defeated at the end of it. And it's fun to watch.
No, Syril, like we were talking about Syril, Dedra, I really had no sympathy for them, toward especially, at the end of their careers and lives. I thought they both got exactly what they deserved. Speaking to Mellow about this, seeing Dedra in prison did, give me a slight like bit of regret. Just because, like I said, I think the concept of prison is so inhumane, and that especially that one they were in was so just way too real to life for me. So I was like, damn. But at the same time, it's like, well, because Because my only other thing for her would have been a bolt to the head. So I was like that
Yeah,
would have
tell
been
the
my
whole story
preferred
about that
end.
conversation because, like, I know everything that happened to you, and I'm always like
Yeah.
horrified by that story, and I have so much sympathy for it. But even when you told me that, I sent you a bunch of cry laughing faces. What the fuck is a Nazi?
This is also true, and I had to accept. Dedra is a Nazi, and got what they deserved by the end of it. And Dedra is like Syril. At least can I can understand both of them. Dedra was raised in this environment. This is all they know. This is what they were born into, and they love it. In a way, I think too, because Dedra really seemed to enjoy it, and I thought she really called Syril out. We were talking about this, but when she called him out, like, you weren't, you didn't turn down none of those promotions, because any little bit of growth for him, he just thought he was doing the greatest thing in the world. Like when Partagas gave him a little shine, he's like, "Oh my God, about to." You about to ejaculate standing right there. And it's like, come on, fam. I also said that watching this series, that this is the first time I was like, yeah, that character. This first time watching Star Wars, where I was like, yeah, he likes to get pegged.
Oh yeah, Dedra.
Yeah, Dedra's Peggy Bundy.
Every night.
Yeah, Dedra's definitely Peggy Bundy.
Every night.
Yeah.
I think for me, Dedra was like a perfect example of what happens when white women, like all the white women that like are MAGA supporters that vote for Trump, like, yes, you think you're a part. You think that you can keep rising through the ranks. They think you're an equal, that you're on the same level, but at the end of the day, you fuck up, like you're the one that's gonna get the blame. You're the one that's gonna like get the punishment. Cause like she really was moving throughout this world like she was an old white man. Like she wanted to be a part so bad. She wanted to like be at the head. She wanted to be in all the important plans. But at the end of the day, they never saw her in that space. They just saw her as a tool to get to what they want. And she realized that at the end, like, no, you weren't our peer, you weren't our colleague, you were just someone that we wanted to use to get to the rebellion, to get back at them.
Did y'all feel that it was intentional? And this is something I really want to ask Gilroy about. Like the fact, I mean, we know the Empire is, usually uniformly non-alien, etc., humanity only. But I really enjoyed how, for the most part, it was straight up white men, British accents a lot of the times. And like Mello said, usually weak-looking, frail-ass white men who couldn't do anything else unless they had the support of this empire. And then a few times we do see, brown or black people, like we see the light-skinned brother, like the one person of, higher power is a very light-skinned brother. He immediately vanishes out of the scene. Like, they're like, yeah, whatever. You fuck up once, you out of here, Negro. And then we see the other dark-skinned brother in the heist and during the eye. And I thought his role was so great because it was like he was used as like he was specifically a dark-skinned brother who is told, go tell these natives what to do, and all that type of stuff. And he's like, yo, I've been serving you. I deserve that. And gets it a few seconds later, unfortunately, but
Like please, I talk too much.
I was gonna say that, like, for me, I saw it as a way that they were showing the lack of diversity from the original series, like the Empire, because this is the timeline of the original, like the first 3 movies.
Yeah.
So like that's what the Empire looked like at the time.
Yes.
Like, and it is like this is actually, what is it, continuity, that they are showing how like white, stale, stark it is, because that's who they cast the first time around. And like they did, like they've upgraded the like rebels to not be quite as much that, so I do see that like this is a choice outside of continuity as well. But also I think when Mello was talking earlier about the idea of the rebels being infections, like even in the hospital where they put Luthen, like everything is very sterile. Like the colors of the Empire, the colors of where they work, the colors of their uniforms, the colors that they are themselves, like washed out in these like very dour looking places. Like they look like to the Empire, probably their representation of the white blood cells coming here to fight the infection. And that's like literally what they are. So I like the characterization, like coinciding with the continuity of the original series, as well as like this concept of like the rebels are an infection and they're here to like halt shit. and get rid of it. I think that also like is what I catch from like the color design. But yeah, I think there's a lot of intention behind the lack of diversity. And I'm like, and also like, who wants to be cast? If you're a person like, do you want to be cast in the Empire? I don't think I would. I'm like, excuse me, you want me to do what?
Kat showed up for Kanye's video, so check
Yeah,
will get them there.
if I was like in like I mean they do it's all video auditions now, but if it was like old school days where people go to the office to get audition and I saw everyone and they looked like me and like they had like sunken in eyes and a real long nose and they like had like just 1 to 2 rap features, I'd be like, what am I doing?
This don't seem to be the Jedi line.
I need to go make a BBC special or something. So I feel you on that.
Yeah, no, I thought, and like you said, Porshea, I thought it was a great flip, because the original shows and movies did have, this very whiteness to them, but especially in the Empire where it's all old white men and they always look weak and frail, generally. So I thought that was just a really dope flip of them to use that and make that work. And then, make it where, because I had a friend who I've been telling about Andor, and he accidentally started on the second season. And so when he starts the second season, he's like, man, what is this? All these British guys, just enforcing toxic whiteness and all this. And I'm like, bro, you are completely missing it because Diego Luna is the lead and he is a, Mexican brother who speaks with a thick accent versus all these white British cats who are speaking with, colonizer accents. So, yeah.
Though, I thought it was very interesting that like Gorman was like predominantly like rich white people. And so like the fact that like we saw this like massacre happen and like basically the plan of genocide on like rich white people, I thought was a very interesting choice that they made. Like how else are you gonna get like, the main audience to really resonate? Like if this is happening to like these upper class white people that like you saw their buildings, you saw their fashions, like they weren't like living in rags and like eating off the street. Like they had palaces. They looked like fucking like Northwest Washington, DC in there. And so I was like, the fact that you showed this happen to like these upper crust looking people is really speaking to like, yes, if this can happen to them, this can happen to anyone. Like, don't think that you're excluded from oppression, that you're excluded from like genocide happening to you.
I liked that they showed Mon Mothma talking to that like textile merchant from Gorman who was like in like the time lapse between she first saw him and he was like, look, I can't like risk my my money like my resources that I'm making whatever by like standing up with this, like I can't do that. And then it's like she sees him again later and he's like, it's over. I know it's over and I know I can't do anything about it. And it's like this is a planet whose whole they have one resource that has made them a bunch of wealth, and yet it still does not save them when the empire comes like running, right? And I did like I enjoy that, Joel, too, because I was like, this is not just a discussion about like race, it's also like class, and it's like not like all the things that like white supremacy has told folks will save them, it's never true. Like, and that's the whole thing about what's happening today, what's happening in history, like all these echoes and why people keep talking about the history and how it echoes today. Because there's like these quote about like they came for this person and then they came for this person and then they came for me. And it's like that's how the cycle goes. You're sitting here, you're scapegoating one group of people and they're kind of because they're currently coming for them, you feel like you're safe. But the closer and closer they get to you, you go start thinking, oh crap, did I mess up? And it's too late by then. You don't have any recourse. You have to sit with it and like that you should be ready to go as soon as you see it pipe up. And the fact that people aren't keeps putting us in this place. It keeps putting people in the Star Wars universe in that place.
No, and I love that because like in Gorman you see these rich white people, like you said, taking the L's and having to deal with everything. But throughout the series, like when in the Kleya episode, when we see her first see people get massacred, it's a bunch of people of color and it's children, everyone getting killed. And that's something else that I've often said, and I've said it before on the show, is that toxic whiteness affects us all. Like, even when we're not at war, even though, we are constantly pretty much at a state of war with this, even just in the normal everyday life, because like, as you see, the empire is drained of color and it can be the same thing in our reality. Like Joel just hurt me when you said, it's like Northwest DC where all the white people are. And I'm like, what? Like, Northwest DC to me is, black as hell and hood. But that's also Northwest DC of like 10, 15, 20 years ago, where it's like, no, Northwest DC has now been sterilized and a lot of that color and that flavor has been taken out of it. And I see the same thing happening in Bed-Stuy, where I live now, where people are trying to sterilize Bed-Stuy and take all the flavor and the color out of it. And it's such a sad life because flavor and color and all these things bring so much joy and happiness and wealth to the world. And to take it out of it, everyone suffers because of it. Oh, I do have a question for Joel and for everyone. How did y'all feel about Vel and Cinta? And did you feel that it was a bit of kill your gays trope? Some gay erasure going on here?
I love getting to see Vel and Cinta on the screen. Like, I thought their story was really beautiful. Like, I loved Cinta since season 1, where she had that conversation of Vel, like, I'm about this rebellion. Like, at the end of the day, like, I love you, but I'm about this rebellion. So if it's not about this rebellion, we can't keep it going. And then to see her, like, turn around in season 2 and be like, actually, like, my life can't just be about the rebellion. Like, I also want to live, and, like, I want to choose you. But then to, like, her heartbreakingly get shot up in the heist scene, and, like, because of some stupid white man that couldn't follow instructions. And, like, I think it was hard to see that, because, like, again, Disney likes to give us, like, a little shot of rainbow, a little shot of gay, and then, like, take it away so quickly. So yeah, I think it was nice to see it, but at the same time, like, to have Cinta die as kind of like this plot device to, like, Vel is now kind of feeling type of way, and she's moving throughout the rebellion in a different, like, mindset because of how Cinta died. And really, like, Cinta's death also kind of being a booster for that. I don't remember their names in Gorman, but that one white man, like, when we saw him in a few, like, time passed later, when it was time for the massacre, like, he was about that life now. Like, he really, you could tell that, like, what Vel said, like, Cinta's gonna be with you forever. Like, she will always be a part of you. You can kind of tell that he's felt that. And, like, he sees, like, all these people and wants to make sure that, like, he does right by people because he knows that he did wrong by Cinta. I think it was just, and then, like, is that did we have to sacrifice Cinta to get to that? Especially, like, this beautiful brown lesbian woman. Like, why did she have to be the one to, like, be the catalyst to get the Gorman rebellion, like, to where it needed to be?
Man, she fine. It's such a badass.
She's available on the new season of Doctor Who.
Yeah, I know. No, like, I fell in love with her when she came home and was like, that's not my blood. And and then I love Vel at that moment too, because Vel's like, look at my badass bitch. Like, I chose a winner. That's when I fell in love with both of them right there. Anyone else? How did y'all feel about Vel and Cinta?
I also love Cinta the first time we met her, and honestly, because I didn't fall in love with Vel. Vel has always been like the scrappy white woman. She's exactly who she is. The rich white woman who got into the rebel to, like, be different from the rest of her family. And look at me, I mean what I say and I do what I do and I boom, boom, bang. Like, I've never really cared for her. Cinta was everything for me. And whenever Cinta died, I was like, couldn't it have been Vel? Because then I would feel a little bit better about, like, what's happening. Not, like, no real shade to Vel, just that I prefer Cinta. And then also, I think I also disliked that her death was all to serve for this random white man who does not mean anything. Cinta means so much, and I think that's part of the story. Like, it doesn't help. It doesn't help the story at all to me.
No.
Like, I don't like it, but I see what they were doing with, like, sometimes the people who you think should deserve to get to the end are not going to make it, and that, like, we get this so earlier on in the season that you're like, it's preparing the stage for what we're going to see later. But I just didn't like that. And again, couldn't have been Vel. Like, she didn't really serve. She wasn't doing too much for me this season. Cinta was doing so much. And so
that needs to go on a shirt. Couldn't have been Vel.
It should have been Vel. But again, no shade to Vel, except for I don't see it for you. And then I think for it to serve the random white man, I think it goes back to Mellow's thought about the special boy or whatever kind of thing. It's like, now is he the special boy? Like, is he like, oh, like the fact that his gun went off and the guy who he was tussling with, probably if he would have just said to the man, hey, we're doing a covert operation right now, like, because he was part of the Gorman resistance, he just wasn't like as into it, like in the way that they were. If he was just like, hey, we're doing an operation right now, I need you to chill, like, could have like like, and again, that's part of the plot is that like this guy is not thinking, he doesn't know how to, like, he's a rep, he's like a foot soldier, he's not really prepared to like actually respond in a way that makes sense right now. But I just, it all annoyed me. I'm like, he should have died over her, Belle should have died over her, any of them could have died besides Cinta should still be kicking. And I actually was annoyed because I also wanted to, I think it was like a layup for us to hear about what happened when she drove Colma, like what Luthen led her to do. And she said she's going to tell Belle later, and then we get her killed off, and we never really get the story. And I'm like, that was like, I'm like, again, Cinta should have survived. She had the story to tell. She had the notes, and maybe we'll get a comic. But I don't want that. I want Cinta. Okay, I rest my case.
I want Mara.
I don't know. I don't even got anything to add to that. That was pretty perfect. What was it? I do think it was. For me, it was they killed the gays in this regards, and like it's uh I'm, uh I'm a big JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fan, and that is a show where like if you kill a character because they're pretty much a lot of them are somewhat pretty positive gay representation in a lot of regards as you go later in the seasons, and they do kill a gay couple in it and you don't feel it as in regards to like I can't believe they would do that to this couple because you still have so many options. You got the rest of the cast, and like it feels different. It's just like if Bix was a man, I wonder if I would feel the same way uh, uh, about everything that happened and how we got that story portrayed to us. But she's not, and Cinta and Vel are both gay women, and we lose one, and we lose our favorite one. And yeah, I'm just upset, and I wonder if that was the goal. I wonder if it was the goal to just be upset about like you're going to lose the one that you like a lot, and you probably may not feel as much about it as you would about like Vel. Um, but at the same time, I do like Vel a lot because I like Vel actually more than I like Mon Mothma. And the reason why is because
Me
like
too.
Vel, yeah, Vel is doing the thing that Luthen is like, you're gonna have to do this. And Mon Mothma is the treasury. And like as a general, I don't know if she's always the person that deserves that part. And I actually actively think she probably isn't the person who deserves that part. And Vel is the one that does because Vel knows how to get dirty. And she's living the thing. She's not typing on Twitter about like we should stand up, y'all. She doing it right. She out there in the dirt for months, waiting for one heist and trying to manage everybody, making all the right deals and everything like that. And she when she loses Cinta, she loses like this important piece of herself. But that's just fridging her girlfriend. She could have got that a different way.
Yeah. I agree, and I also agree with the same thing that I think I love Vel more than I love Mon Mothma. And I get what you're saying, Portia, but I felt like Vel made that choice more so than Mon Mothma did. Where it was like Mon is still like, but we have to live. Like when she tells that to Vel when they're, on the retreat. And it's like Vel's already past that point. Like living isn't really the option. Like rebellion, war is. Amon is still thinking, and I think that's, I'm not even sure if she ever comes to that place. Like Mello said, she's still wearing, slightly nice dresses throughout the time that we see her. It's like she never really comes to the place realizing what she's really a part of. It's like that was one of my other favorite, lines is how nice of you, how nice for you is when Luthen tells her that. That shit was so fucking cold blooded. Like that's something that I've used in normal conversation, since then and will continue for the rest of my life. Because like, it's
like,
so
oh, that's
many,
sweet.
it's like how nice for you, like, oh
It,
wow.
it's also kind of telling, but I don't know if this is like the actress and like how she normally is, because the actress who plays Vel is also in adolescence, and she sort of has the same posture that she does within Andor.
Hmm.
But when she is within those like very fancy parties, whenever we see her there, there's a layer of like she doesn't belong there. Like we know who she really is, and it like this looks like a disguise. This feels like how we're supposed to be looking at like how Batman thinks of himself. Like in his mind, he calls himself Batman. He never calls himself Bruce. I feel the same way about Vel whenever she is in her civilian clothing.
Hmm.
She's just like, I guess I gotta put on this pretty dress and I guess I gotta walk this way. And she chooses still not to walk that way. She walks pretty tough. She is still kind of like pretty hands off and pretty stern in that environment, and I like that about that character. It's like this is who she actually is, as opposed to Mon Mothma, who is like you need her, you 100% need her, you have to have this person there because they're also fun to us, but
Hmm.
but at the same time, I don't know if that's the person that should be telling us what to do. I don't
I
know if that
was
should be the yeah.
I was just having this conversation for a real life stuff about the role of donors and how donors move is, and this is anybody, right? Like we see this on a localized level with ourselves, like whenever we're paying money for a service, we feel like we should dictate how that service is rendered, right? Like we're paying for it, we should be able to say what we get from it. Donors act that way with these major things, with like, I'm giving you my money because you said that you're going to like use it towards a defense fund. I think that I should dictate if like not only the defense fund, like I this is what I support, but if you move in a way that I don't feel like aligns with my politics outside of like you tweet something about a cause that I don't align with, then I feel like I should be able to tell you that you should never tweet that way because
Hmm.
that's against my role as a donor, and therefore I will not give you further donations in the future if you continue to do that thing. So I think Mon Mothma is she's holding the reins as I'm the one providing money. Therefore, I get to dictate what's said. And Luthen is like, she what can like I can only rein her in. I can't say that no, because that's not how that works.
Hmm.
Um, but I was gonna say, I was like, while we're here on this family, how did y'all feel about the daughter and the wedding and her like Mon Mothma being like, you know, you don't have to do this. Like, my mom did not do this for me, but I want to do this for you. Like, you don't have to do this. And her getting like a slap in the face. And that. How did y'all feel about that? If you felt anything at all about this whole situation?
I thought that it was like, and I think that goes into something. I feel like that society is very traditional. And I feel like that's why Vel is the way she is too, where she's there, where when she talks to Kleya, she's like, we're just two single women out here looking for prospects when both of them are not that, and I feel like that society is a society where it's like, especially as it seems to, being steered back towards conservatism, it's like, it's going back to the old ways, and the old ways are you get married young to a dude and you have a family, etc. So I feel like it's that for Mon Mothma, it's it's like my kid has bought, has drank the Kool-Aid, and everything I did to raise this kid a different way, it hasn't worked out. They like the taste of the Kool-Aid. And so I'm going to have to accept that and move on. I think it's telling that we really don't even see her daughter after that. Like at the end, we see, her husband, off with, his new boo. I'm not sure what happened to old boo's,
Who
man.
is who
Yeah,
is
I
her?
know.
Yeah, yeah, like that is a little interesting.
It
What's
was really
happening
interesting.
there?
I really liked it because I think my man's just a player. I feel him. Everybody loves him. He's the life of the party. So, but we don't see her daughter after that because she is fully drank the Kool Aid and is well on her way to being Little Miss Princess.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm always gonna once an episode where we talk about Andor, I'm always gonna bring up still hilarious that Perrin is cosplaying as a Jedi.
Yeah, no,
He's
parent
culturally
is.
appropriating Jedi every time we see him, and that says everything you need to know about him as a person.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But in regards to like Mon Mothma and the wedding, is the crucial point there is that it happened on Mon Mothma's personal wedding day,
Mm.
where her mom didn't have that talk with her, but her mom did drink so much that she couldn't stop dancing, and like she was like just completely out of it, and that let Mon Mothma know two things: is the endless cycle
Mm-hmm.
that is infinite and impossible to break, and this is just your turn in it. Like you are not that special, which is also what the show is kind of saying as a whole about all these characters, that they're all just cogs in a cycle instead of the special piece.
Mm-hmm.
And there's beauty in being a cog.
Yep.
But for her situation, that the mechanism that she is so toxic that it proves the second point, which is you can't beat this monster from the inside. It's going to keep eating you, no matter how much you think you're in control, no matter how much you think you have ability for it. Uh, these aren't monsters you can beat by being the person that's just in the door, and it's slowly chipping everything away. And her reflection of that moment as she just gave the okay for her friend to be assassinated by just being like, "I'm going to clutch my pearls until it's over." Um, and Luthen giving her a pass and be like, "I'll let you do that this time.
Yeah.
You can do that this time. Go drink." That I think that is the birth of who Mon Mothma will be later.
Mm-hmm.
That particular moment, and but even still, that's that's also still further proving the point where I'm just like, why is she the leader of the rebellion? But yeah.
The money talk.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I saw that scene, it was very I think it was when Mon Mothma realized, like, what she was going to have to sacrifice for this
Mm-hmm.
rebellion, for, like, her one of her big sacrifices was, like, her family and, like, her privilege and her status, and, like, that's kind of like a shout out to, like, "Hey, white people, you're gonna have to sacrifice your privilege to be a part, like, you can't have all the nice things," and I think, like, you are gonna have to cut relationships, you are gonna have to cut ties. Like, she realized because, "Oh, my daughter is so into this, my family is, like, they've drank the Kool-Aid so much, like, there's no turning back from them, but I know that's, like, not the right path, like, I have to make the decision that I can't be on the same path as them anymore." Like, she was drinking her life away because she was just like, "Well, fuck it, this is the last time I'll really spend with my family because I know from here on out, I can't follow the same path that they're on." Like, if they decide to come to the rebellion, cool, but they've chosen their life, and they've chosen to be on the Empire side, so, like, I have to really, like, make that sacrifice of, like, yeah, I can't have this relationship with my daughter and my husband.
All right. We have spoken about this season for a good minute here. Any last thoughts, anyone? Anything else you want to talk about? Anything you felt you took away from this show? Any last feelings? Anything before we get out of here?
Recently I saw something that kind of like put everything back into perspective of me for me about like this current present moment and like really how people are moving. And I think the Andor has been doing like it's what Andor showcases in a way is very much this thought about what we're doing, like what we're the progress we're making, what we're trying to do, what they're trying to make progress towards, what they end up like seeing people on the fall to the wayside and they themselves are like, coming off of and being traumatized by um they're not futile, like there is this like greater bigger
Mm,
picture, but the bigger picture is, and then also like you see this in Rogue One, it's not on you realizing and being able to see it yourself within your lifetime. It's on you to build out your time in a way that the people that come behind you are able to actually make that thing come to fruition. So not to lose heart when you don't see things that you're building towards actually come and like actually come into fruition and become part of life in front of you. This is something that is a longer term legacy. And I think that's the story of Luthen. That's the story of the whole rebellion. But I think seeing Luthen's case is very like specific of like that's how quick the turnaround is. You can be in it, not not want to be in it, decide to be in it for like a very like specific reason, become intertwined with it, create your own space within it, and then also know that when it's your time to go is your time to go, but at least you've done what you can so that someone else behind you can take up your take up the cause and move forward because of something that you've done. So I find a level of like heart in that, but also that is it's not something easy to do. It's not easy to like reconcile with the fact that what you're doing now is not something that you will see the bear the fruits of in your lifetime. Um, but you have to be okay with that. And I appreciate seeing that in Andor.
Yeah, I think to add on, I liked how we saw with Luthen that like not everyone is like quote unquote right all the time, but like will their ideas, their contributions still matter? Like I think about that one of the last episodes where Andor's back and he's telling the news of the Death Star. And the council's kind of like shitting on Luthen. They're like, oh, like, why should we believe Luthen? Like, it's been a year since you've last talked to him. We don't know what he's been doing. And Andor was like, it's an insult to like what he's done for the rebellion for y'all to be talking to him about. Like, yes, he had his flaws. Yes, he didn't always make the right choices, but like his contributions matter. Like when I was recently in the Philippines and I was at the museum of like where they showed the different revolutions and like how one of our major revolutionaries, like Andres Bonifacio, was like by the end of the time was seen as a traitor. And it's just like the leaders that we have in the rebellion, they might not all be right 100% of the time, but like the ideas that they contribute that we build up of, that we like polish and refine and like make better, their contributions still matter, and we need to make sure that we understand like how everyone has a part to play.
I'm actually gonna go pretty fun with mine because of how serious this all is. So if you are a fan of Andor and you're like, yo, this is the part of the Star Wars universe that I actually like and that I love it, this is the only part I want to stick with, or anything like that. What they're not going to make anymore, what Gilroy isn't coming back. Don't worry, because what you actually are is a fan of Mobile Suit Gundam. This show is 100% Gundam. It is as Gundam as possible. If you want recommendations as to where to start with Gundam, the original '70s show is one of the best child soldier. This is what it's like to be a civilian during war, and then you suddenly pick up a gun and you figure out what it's about, and it puts you through the mental process of everything that goes through that. It's amazing. It does that. There's Iron Blooded Orphans, which is got the dopest premise I've ever heard of in a show, which is a bunch of child soldiers free themselves from their captors, turn themselves into a company of mercenaries, and then they take the money that they earn to go free more child soldiers and add to their army, which is the dopest concept ever. Uh, and then there's also uh, Gundam Double O, which is like, what if solar energy became the main power in the world and it made other places like Saudi Arabia and Russia useless? What happens to the world and what kind of factions happen and what kind of war goes on during that? And your main characters who are Gundam pilots identify themselves as terrorists, where they go to a battlefield and they kill everybody until they all stop fighting because they're cool with being villains. So what I'm saying is, if you like Andor, please watch Gundam because it's doing all that, and it doesn't have the Star Wars problem where you're watching a fraction of a story. You're getting the whole thing. You're getting the full meal. You get to walk away with it. So don't worry that Andor is going, because you got tons of all of that still available to you.
But since we're doing a bit of recommendations, and I just recently rewatched it, and I always say this, watch Athena on Netflix. It's one of the greatest films to me ever made. And if you want to see something that's as hard and tough and inspiring as Andor about revolution and rebellion, I would say Athena is it, because rewatching it really broke my heart again. And it also inspired me. And that's something that I take away from Andor. It's like, I thought that, mom was a little bugging when she says, we have to live. And even her husband, who's like, we got to enjoy the good times in life. I feel like that's also a real beautiful part of the show, is that it shows you that even while others are losing their humanity, you still have to hold on to that, because that is something that makes us great. I believe in our art, our music, our everything that we create. Being a creative is something that, is always, I just do every day. Even if we're in a fight, I still believe we have to live and have to enjoy this life as much as possible during all these dark times that we're all living through. And so I thought that was really beautiful for Andor to say that as well. I think that's about it. I, could talk about this show, and we probably will be talking more about the show in the coming weeks. I definitely would love to have an all-star review of Andor so I could talk more about it. we'll be, like I said, I'll be going to a talk tomorrow to speak with Mr. Gilroy himself. Hopefully we can get him on For All Nerds very soon to discuss this. It would be one of my greatest moments on this show to have him on here. So let's make that happen. Anything else before we get out here? And all y'all, please let the people know where they can find you at if you want them to find you.
Don't look for me. Just don't. Like I'm gone. But at the same time, please support Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze.
Word.
With our various nominations that we got going on. And you can also look at my works at look at my works. I said that out loud. I also write Blade Runner Origins, Blade Runner Tokyo, Blade Runner 2039, and something else Blade Runner coming out. So yeah, if you like if you like anything that I said, it's probably in there too. So yeah.
Word. Porshea?
I'm in a very experimental space with what I'm doing in life. But I guess I could point you towards my TikTok. I will be experimenting on things there, possibly creatively, soon at Porshea Knows. So you can do that, probably. Maybe I'll do something. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe.
And you'll be back for Castle Black later this summer too, as well.
Sure will.
Yep. And Joel?
You can follow me if you want, but if you don't find me, that's okay too. But definitely follow all of our accounts at ForAllNerds because
Word.
find those. So
Yes.
anytime you see me post, please like, comment. I try to interact with people, so definitely find me through there. But if you do want to follow my personal stuff, it's Joelite91 on all things Blue Sky Instagram. You might see me post like my performances and music stuff. So
Word. And of course, follow me at DJ Benhameen and my partner Tatiana King as well. Shout out to them. They were off on a special mission tonight, which we'll have more about very soon. Make sure you head over to ForAllNerds.com where you can get this fly ass Sith Happens design and that Gucci Mandalorian that Joel is rocking, as well as a few other dope designs. Head over to ForAllNerds.com, leave your email and get some % off your purchase, all that good stuff. For me, like I said, follow me at DJ Benhameen. Head over to Bid Dance Energy, Black Dance Energy, biddjenergy.com, any one of those, and leave your email because I'm going to be dropping some more music. I dropped a lot already this year, but I'm dropping some official releases starting probably first week in summer. So head over there, biddjenergy.com, leave your email, and you'll get all that for free. And I think that's about it. Thank you all for joining us. For real, this is one of my favorite shows of all time. I'll definitely be speaking more about Andor in the coming weeks, months, years, and everything. Thank y'all. Remember Gorman. Peace.
Hey, what's up, internets and the fan fam? This is Tatiana King for All Nerds, and I want to thank you so much for listening and watching the All Nerds. Make sure you like and subscribe to us only on YouTube.
For All Nerds Show is a member of the Loudspeakers Network, where we always say rest in peace to our founder, Combat Jack.
For All Nerds Show is powered by our listeners. Everything we do, from our podcasts, live events, our website, are all independently funded. Please continue to support us through our Patreon page at patreon.com/forallnerds.